Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Life's Little Golden Nuggets. I'm Caleb Mackey. I'm a therapist in Kentucky. So, just have another book that I had read probably back about December of last year that had a few things in it that I felt were like, oh my gosh, that'd be awesome to share with you guys today. It actually was a very hopeful reading, and I really just am blown away by it. And this book is called The Mind and the Brain, Neuroplasticity, and the Power of Mental Force, written by Jeffrey M. Schwartz, MD, and Sharon Begley. You can find it on Amazon. I found this, I believe, on Thrift Books, because I wanted to get it as soon as I had listened to it in an audiobook. Oh my goodness. I listened to it on Hoopla, and to hear it was different, but even reading it, it was still very helpful. And there were 4 things that I remember recording from hearing it and finding it in the book that I would love to share with you today. Number 1, the factor that provides the developing brain with the right connection is, ironically, a profusion of wrong connections. It's kind of the idea of saying, you're going to make numerous mistakes, but as you make those mistakes and as you keep honing and tuning, that is going to help shape your brain in order to shape how you'll be able to do what you need to do, whatever that is. That's my opinion, so I know people may have some different points of view on it, or they may be able to go deeper, or they may just say, you are totally wrong. That's okay. But it's the idea that as you work at it and as you do it over and over, and even if you keep messing it up, you are still shaping your brain to be able to do something more. It's the fine-tuning process. It kind of reminds me when I was a music major undergrad at Kentucky Christian University, and taking a piano tuning class was, it felt like a good idea at the time. It was so hard. I recommend doing it because it makes you learn something different about the inner workings of a piano, and learning how some keys have 3 strings that all have to be tuned just right together to make one note that you hear. And then if not, if one of them is off, it's going to have a weird sound that everybody's like, that's either flat, that's sharp, or it's not tuned right. So the idea of working through each string to tune it, to make sure it matches the proper tone set forth by your pitchfork or a tone on the app, whatever works. But you have to do it over and over and keep tweaking just a little bit on the knobs to tighten or lessen the string to get the right note that you want. You're messing it up over and over until you finally get it right that one time. So another way to say it is thinking of Thomas Edison, who famously, we throw on the quote of he failed 2,000 times to make what we now have as the incandescent light bulb. And he said, I didn't fail, I just found out 2,000 ways how not to make a light bulb. And so I was like, okay. That was really cool because it just humbles and reminds me to be aware of the fact that you're going to mess up way more than you're going to do it right, whatever it is you do. Learning a new skill, playing a sport, trying to learn how to write a book, trying to learn how to play an instrument, trying to learn how to learn a language. You're going to mess it up a lot more than you're going to get it right. But as you do it more and more, and you keep developing and fine-tuning, eventually you will be able to do it right more often than having mistakes. But your brain has to take the time to do it, going through that profusion of wrong connections to develop with the right connection. So that was amazing. Number 2, the brain's representation of the body, of movements, and of sounds are all shaped by experience. Yeah, our brain is a constantly processing machine. And so, to me, that really makes sense. And to say, you got to get out there. You got to be able to live. You got to be able to experience what's going on. And as you do, it helps shape your brain to understand what it means, and it helps shape it to understand what's going on around it. And then as you develop your beliefs about it, kind of to one of our past videos about learning how we have a bias that comes through our mind and of our experience, to then also have it challenged and fine-tuned by others and by other experiences around us, is very important for allowing your brain to develop into what they call the neuroplasticity, which allows it to grow and be flexible over time instead of staying rigid. So, very important there. But it's all shaped by experience. And then every stimulus from the world outside impinges on a consciousness predisposed to accept it or ignore it. Not only do mental states matter to the physical activity of the brain, but they can contribute to the final perception even more powerfully than the stimulus itself. That's saying that your brain has a lot more power than sometimes we may give it credit for. It's one of the things that they talk about. Why is it that we as humans can have such a fear of something that we develop anxiety about the fear, and then we don't even venture out. If we're so afraid of snakes, why is it that all we have to do is look at a picture of a snake and we are shuddering inside? Part of it is because sometimes our mental states are able to contribute to the final perception of what we're experiencing, and it can say, that is dangerous, we do not need to be around it, even when it's just the picture of a snake. It's not even a real one. And even in a real one, it's not always going to hurt you. But the brain has to really work hard through constant challenge and growth to be able to work around that and through that. That's why therapy is one of the most helpful ways to do that, because you have someone who's constantly sharing with you to say, hey, the way that your brain is doing it may not be wholly the right way. There may be another way to do it. That's how I tend to say it to my clients. It doesn't mean that the way that they're doing it is wrong. It just means it may not be exactly what you think it is, because to someone else it may be very different. So it's always about being aware about how your brain can shape the perception that you experience with the stimulus that happens around you. So paying very much attention to that. And then lastly, for it is the life we lead that creates the brain we have. It kind of wraps up the rest of these other quotes that were shared, but it was kind of near the end of the book, and it was just a very little, because this guy talks about quantum physics. He talks about learning the brain connections that help with like stroke patients by learning it from monkeys. Very, very in-deep stuff that I need to go over and read again, because I get confused and I stumble on it a lot. So this is very much a overgeneralized idea of what this book is. But it does come down to try to say, like, don't ignore the idea of thinking, well, this is just all that it is. All that I experience, all that I am is my life. He's saying, no, there's more to it. And it is whatever life you choose to lead is what creates the brain you have. How you live shapes your brain, and then how your brain is shaped impacts how you live. That constant feedback loop is happening. And so he just warns us and says, you have the power to be able to change your life by changing how you live. It's why when people go on diets and they start to feel better, or they start to exercise and they start to feel better, they start to be more social with healthy people, and it starts to make their whole mood, their days, everything better. Because they're living a life that changes the brain that they have. Because the brain takes in that information, suddenly starts to say, oh, this is actually different or better than what it has been, and I want it to continue. So, very hopeful book. I really, 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 really hope that, it's one of the few that I'm like, I really would suggest for a lot of people to have this in their library. Even just to take these few quotes to say, look, you have the power to change the world around you. And you do it by how you choose to experience the world, how you choose to live in regards to the stimulus around you or the atmosphere around you. And you always have the power, and you are not a slave to what your brain says, to what anyone else says, and you can somehow make it different and maybe even better. So I really hope that people will check out the book, The Mind and the Brain by Jeffrey Schwartz and Sharon Begley. Thank you so much for giving me your time today to share this with you. I hope you found this helpful. It really was so for me. And I can't wait for the next video to come out, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much, guys. See you later.